we are asked by the Apostle to put on heartfelt mercy, kindness, humility, meekness, patience. Personally, on a daily basis, I say both one Our Father, one Hail Mary, and one Glory be for each of the gifts of the Spirit. There are 7. But then I go on to the fruits of the Spirit, and they are more in number, and we find them here again. They characterize what should be our comportment as Christians. There's nothing worse than going to a place of prayer, be it a liturgical assembly, a prayer group, or a community of prayer, and finding that the contrary is felt to be the case. If that is going on, is the Lord receiving that praise? Now, we need to look at a few concrete issues here, for we might not be as free of these problems as we think. It's easy to point fingers, but when we point a finger, remember, there are 3 pointing back at us. First of all, the fact that we are asked in this reading, and by the Lord himself actually, to be factors of peace is the bottom line. The busybody will not allow those around him or her to be at peace. Why? That person is not at peace, him or herself. So the problem is there. And all day long we more or less are at risk of being in proximity with people who are not at peace. And we have a choice to make, my friends. We don't have to be part of that problem. If a person of unpeacefulness is approaching, beware! Don't collide. Learn the art of circumnavigation. It's not worth it. And so, there's a lot of wisdom in the old 3 monkeys, which I remember being given a hint about when I was in the novitiate. If we practice that art of just officially seeing nothing, officially, and officially hearing nothing, officially, and this one especially, saying nothing, then perhaps we will limit the damage of our dangerous, risky existence, always bumping into unpeaceful souls. Now, this applies also to something else. It's that the busybody also can be a holy busybody and can think that a lot depends on him or herself, and that therefore the idea that has just landed in his or her head must immediately be put into practice. Something must happen which no one has ever thought about, and woe betide anyone who gets in the way. Now that person can't sit still. Do you know that the French philosopher Blaise Pascal said, the great misery of man, tout le malheur de l'homme, is in the fact that he can't sit in a room and do nothing. We have a choice, my friends. Do we want to be always fidgeting, or doing what we're asked to do and doing that well, with energy then to spare for the interior, which very quickly is drained in the other case? We don't have to do everything that crosses our mind. There is quality life also in being with a friend. And we're only here once, my friends. Don't waste it in activism. But there is more. The reading from this passage of St. Paul wants us to be souls that warm and welcome. That concerns us all the time. A person is coming to you, and what is your reaction? They will pick it up. It can be on the phone, it can be at the front door, it can actually be even in the street. It's important that we carry around a cloud of warmth and attraction. Don't be an emitter of fumes wherever you are, even if the person can't hear you, e.g. at the driving wheel. But there is more again, my friends. A community also has to be attractive. This community is actually, thank God, a genuinely praying community, and people pick it up. We're all here by choice, and we help each other to pray. A good monastery does the same. But we are all called to do one thing as we go through life. Be bridges between heaven and earth. It hit me when years ago I was made guest master, because there it's genuinely in the name of God, being an icon of the warmth of Christ. Welcoming. Do we genuinely give the impression that the person before us is the only one in the world, the most important at that time, and has my total attention? Or will I answer the phone? Or be looking at a screen? I want, my friends, before I finish, to look for a second also at the Gospel. We are all rubbing shoulders with other human beings. Many are in sin, and should they die, could be lost. It can happen even in a church assembly that there are some who are about to make a sacrilegious communion. The Lord only knows their heart, but it is a serious issue, because it's precisely the parable that we have. The weeds are in the midst, and the Lord allows the growth, for He alone is the judge. But listen to this. You want a story? You listening? Now, you want a story to make your hair stand on end? Are you sitting uncomfortably? Then I shall begin. This is going back a good while now. It's in our area of Tuscany, in Italy. A young man of good stock, who at the age of 16 or 17 had had the misfortune of concealing a mortal sin in confession, and in that state of receiving communion. Now he had put off from week to week and month to month the painful disclosures of his sacrileges. Tortured, noticed by remorse, instead of discovering with simplicity his misfortune, uncovering that is, découvrir, he sought to gain quiet by great penances. Now that can happen. One can produce all kinds of piety, but avoid the issue. It was to no purpose. Unable to bear the strain any longer, he entered a monastery. There, at least, he said to himself, I will tell all and expiate my frightful sins. What happened there? He was welcomed as a holy young man by his superiors. because he had a good reputation. And shame again got the better of him. So he deferred his confession, that is, complete confession of this particular sin, to a later period. And a year, 2 years, 3 years passed in this deplorable state. He never dared to reveal his misfortune. Then he fell ill. Now is the time, he said to himself. I am going to tell all. I will make a general confession before I die. What happened? This time, instead of frankly and fairly declaring his faults, he twisted them so artfully that his confessor was unable to understand him. He wasn't at peace, and he hoped to come back again the next day. But an attack of delirium came on, and he died. Of course, the community thought he was well on the way to glory. He had a great reputation in the community, and even a certain veneration for this young man. So his body was borne with a certain degree of solemnity into the church of the monastery itself, and lay exposed in the choir until the next morning, when the funeral was to be celebrated. A few moments before the time fixed for the ceremony, one of the brothers sent to toll the bell. Saw before him, all of a sudden, the deceased, encompassed by chains that seemed to glow with fire, while something blazing appeared all over his person. The poor brother was scared out of his wits and fell to his knees, his eyes riveted on what he was seeing. And then he heard this: "Do not pray for me. I am in here for all eternity." And he related the sad story of his false shame and sacrileges, and vanished, leaving in the church a disgusting odour which spread all over the monastery, as if to prove the truth of all that the brother had just seen and heard. Notified at once, the superiors had the corpse taken away, deeming it unworthy of ecclesiastical burial. My friends, never be ashamed. When you go to confession, you're talking to Jesus. The priest, as at the altar, when he pronounces the words, is just giving to Jesus his voice box. Jesus is the one that we confess to, and we can't